Thank you for watching this video. In recent weeks, the nearly forgotten 2016 murder of a young DNC staffer in Washington, D.C. has resurfaced in the echo chambers of social media. The murder of Seth Rich, a young, promising 27-year-old staffer with the Democratic National Committee in Washington, D.C. in the summer of 2016, was one of several topics discussed on a recent podcast with host Megyn Kelly and her guest political observer and commentator Mike Benz. So let me begin by saying, 1, this is going to be long, and 2, I neither know nor have in my possession anything of any corroborative, probative, or evidentiary value. But I'll tell you what I heard about the Seth Rich homicide, and I'll tell you what I think was going on. Maybe I'm right, or maybe my suppositions and conjecture are total BS. You be the judge. First, a little about me. I was born and raised in the DC metropolitan area. I spent my entire career from the early 1980s to the early 2020s working as a government IT contractor. I worked for the Justice Department twice, the Department of Defense, the Executive Office of the President of the United States Marshals Service, the Center for Naval Analysis, and even a foreign embassy in one technology-related capacity or another. Like any professional group, i.e., attorneys, accountants, doctors, etc., the IT community is a tightly knit network, and we talk to one another. Most of the time, this ex officio network, which is extensive and has eyes and ears into practically every corner of government, just complains about how inefficient or disorganized the federal government is, or whatever particular agency or department we are currently working with. We also act as an early warning system for one another to warn our IT brethren away from problematic contracts or contracts with troublesome government personnel. There are a lot of frustrated, incompetent government workers who go out of their way to make life miserable for contractors. Right, Yolanda? So we try to give our fellow IT brethren a heads up about what they might be getting into if they sign on to a particular contract. So back to the Seth Rich homicide. Seth was shot at approximately 4:20 a.m. on a Sunday morning, July 10, 2016 to be precise. By the following Monday morning, the rumor that was circulating within the IT community was that Rich had been working on a project at DNC headquarters that involved rigging electronic voting machines. Now remember, this was 2016. The notion of voting machine fraud on a widespread scale wouldn't come to the forefront of national attention for another 4 years in the aftermath of the suspicious circumstances surrounding the 2020 election. However, in 2016, the proposition was ludicrous. The thought that one of the nation's political parties would stoop to something so immoral, unethical, and criminal as rigging electronic voting machines was so implausible as to be absolutely laughable. So I shrugged it off as just one of those absurd rumors that get started out of nowhere in the aftermath of tragedy. Unfortunately, somewhere along the line, I had forgotten that initial rumors, whispered in dark corners, unattributable to anyone, but which swiftly surface in the wake of tragedy, disaster, or contretemps, are often closer to the truth than not. Rumors that surfaced immediately after the arrest of the Watergate burglars, which suggested high-level White House involvement in the burglary, is a case in point. That rumor was laughed at too. What made the rumor about Seth's participation in a voting machine rigging scheme seem absurd was that, 1, Seth was a poli-sci major, and 2, he had no appreciable IT development or coding skills, although he was working doing voter data analysis for the DNC. I thought surely that if Seth was involved in an undertaking like voting machine regularly, some kind of IT connection was sine qua non. Enter the Awan family. The Awans, I think there were 5 or 6 of them, were a family of Pakistanis who, over the course of about 10 years, managed to become the principal IT technical support staff for many, if not all, of the leading Democrats on Capitol Hill and at DNC headquarters in Washington, D.C. Meaning to say Pelosi, Schumer, Schiff, Donna Brazile, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, John Podesta, and others. The Awans had deep access to their clients' systems, to include user IDs and passwords, as well as access to their email accounts, server and cloud stored files, etc. Curiously, very soon after Seth was murdered, the Awans, en masse, fled the US and returned to Pakistan. One other vital bit of information. In the weeks after Seth's murder, we learned that he had found out that Debbie Wasserman Schultz and others at the DNC were knowingly committing campaign contribution fraud by taking funds donated to Bernie Sanders' campaign and channeling the money to Hillary's campaign coffers. According to sources, Seth, who was a Bernie bro, was furious. Okay, so you've got a disaffected, now dead DNC staffer and this shady group of Pakistanis providing IT support to leading Democrats up on the Hill who disappear practically overnight in the wake of the former's murder. Where's the connection, I asked. Seth had no IT skills. He was poli-sci and data analytics. The Awans were IT contractors who provided technical support to their clients. Where's the overlap? DNC headquarters is a pretty big building with several hundred people working there. Even if Seth and the Awans did work at the same physical location, the Awans split their time between Capitol Hill and DNC headquarters, while Seth worked exclusively at the latter. There's a pretty good chance that they never crossed paths, let alone worked together collaboratively on a project. Then, while doing my own sniffing around, I came across a photograph taken a few weeks before Seth's murder of a group of DNC staffers and contractors out having a few beers after work one night. I think the photo was taken over at Capital City Brewing Company on New York Avenue. There, in the picture, standing on either side of Seth, arms linked with one another, are 2 of the Awan brothers. The photo suggests to me that Seth knew at least 2 of the Awans, and therein may lay the connection. So let's review the facts. 1. Seth was pissed that the pro-Hillary cabal at DNC headquarters was defrauding Saunders supporters by knowingly redirecting their campaign contributions to Hillary's war chest. 2. Seth knew the Awans. 3. The Awans had access to the email accounts that held inculpatory evidence implicating leading Democrats at the DNC in campaign contribution fraud. 4. Seth was last seen leaving a bar, Lou's City Bar, on foot, about 2 miles from his apartment, around 1:40 a.m. on the morning of his murder. 5. There is no evidence of Seth catching a cab, or Ubering, or taking public transportation, which is closed at that hour, after leaving the bar. 6. Seth was shot at 4:20 a.m. 7. On August 9th, 2016, almost a month to the day after Seth's murder, the founder of WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, offered a $20,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the persons responsible for Seth's murder. Although Julian Assange has never publicly stated that Seth was working with or for WikiLeaks, the reward offer has long been interpreted as an implied statement of such. So where did Seth go, and what did Seth do between the hours of 1:40 a.m. and 4:20 a.m., meaning to say for nearly 3 hours in the middle of the night? Even drunk and crawling, it shouldn't have taken Seth more than an hour, 90 minutes tops, to cover the distance from Lou's City Bar, where he was last seen, to his home in DC's gentrified Bloomingdale neighborhood. That leaves approximately an hour to an hour and a half unaccounted for. My theory is that on the night of his murder, Seth was acting as a cutout between the Awans and some third party, most likely WikiLeaks. I think Seth was either taking the storage medium containing the incriminating emails to a WikiLeaks representative, or he was coming back from such a rendezvous when he was ambushed and murdered. Next month will mark the 9-year anniversary of Seth's murder. Yes, DC is a mean city, especially in the early morning hours. Yes, you can walk into a gun at any hour of any day on any street in any DC neighborhood. So it's entirely possible that Seth's murder was just one more robbery turned tragedy in a city where violent crime is as commonplace as traffic congestion and cockroaches. But there are too many suspicious things, too many oddities, to dismiss Seth's murder as such. Firstly, why was the FBI involved in the investigation? Seth was not a federal government employee, which wouldn't have automatically triggered their involvement anyway. He was not on federal property at the time of his murder. DC has its own police department with its own homicide unit composed of some pretty competent investigators and detectives. If you or I were murdered on the corner of Flagler Place and W Street, it is they who would play the lead role in the investigation, not the FBI. So why was the FBI involved? And why did they seize Seth's laptop? Why won't the FBI let anyone, including DC Homicide, I've been told, examine the laptop's contents? Why was a private investigator, a former DC Homicide detective, retained with the Seth family's blessings to investigate their son's murder, summarily fired after claiming that Seth and WikiLeaks were in communication with one another at the time of the former's murder? If Seth's murder was the tragic outcome of a robbery gone wrong, as everyone steadfastly maintains, why was nothing of value stolen from him? Moreover, how do investigators know nothing of value was stolen? Do they have a full and complete inventory of all his possessions before he was murdered? And this is the strangest thing of all. Why is there universal and complete agreement among all the media outlets that Seth's murder was nothing more than a robbery gone wrong tragedy? I've never seen that kind of consensus uniformity in my life, principally because there's neither money nor Pulitzers in uniformity or conformity. Almost always, for any story, there's at least some dissent or disagreement among the reporting news outlets. But you won't find a single article anywhere that doesn't agree that the Seth Rich leaked emails murder theory is nothing more than a debunked conspiracy theory concocted by tinfoil hat-wearing far-right extremists whose paranoia-induced imaginations have gotten the better of them. And another thing. Murderers, especially gang-banging amateurs on a power trip, brag. Accomplices talk. Neighborhoods have eyes and ears, both electronic and human. Yet no one has dimed anyone out. No one, not even a disgruntled or conscious, conflicted, remorse-stricken accomplice has ever come forward. No one saw anything. Nothing was captured on anyone's video doorbell. If Seth's murder was the work of an amateur, he's a damned lucky one. Like I said in the beginning, maybe my speculation and conjecture is all BS. But I still find it hard to believe that Seth just walked into a random gunman's bullet on that fateful Sunday morning in July of 2016. Is it possible? Yeah. But is it likely? Doubtful. I think there's more to it, and I'm hoping that with the new administration's promises of transparency and openness, the record will be opened and the facts will come out. I suppose we can expect that to happen about the time the Epstein and JFK files are released. So in the meanwhile, I won't hold my breath.